Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our latest debate. This is with candidates running for Council District 3, and we're excited to have Barry, John, and Tim with us this evening. As usual, we're going to give a little bit of context specific to CD3 and in general in the city of LA. We'll then go into candidate opening statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their opening statement. We have a number of Streets for All curated questions. Each candidate will get up to 1 minute to answer. We'll do as much audience Q&A as we can get to. Last time we ran out of time. We'll try not to do that this time. And then we'll do 1 minute each for candidate closing statements. So I apologize for the repetition if you've been to one of the 4 debates we've hosted in the last 30 days, but it bears repeating. The way we live is very expensive, and it's estimated that the local LA economy loses $19 billion per year in lost productivity from people being stuck in gridlock. They did a study, unfortunately, they did the study in LA on nighttime domestic violence, and they found that on extra heavy traffic days, domestic violence rates go up. Our air is terrible. You smoke up to 4 cigarettes per day just by breathing. Of course, that includes our kids. The LA basin is worse than the nation for year-round ozone emissions, 5th worst for particle pollution. We have one of the highest rates of childhood asthma in the country. And it's also very deadly to live the way we live. As you can see, it used to be every 3 days a pedestrian was killed in the city of LA. It's now gone, unfortunately, down to 2 days. So, and this is the second year in a row, 2025, where more pedestrians were killed by car crashes than homicides. Wheelchair users are especially at risk, 36% higher likelihood of being killed in a crash compared to people outside of a wheelchair. We have a pedestrian fatality rate that's nearly 4 times the national average. So it's much safer, as chaotic as a place like New York City may feel. It's actually much safer to be a pedestrian there compared to Los Angeles. The average bus in the city of LA is incredibly slow, less than 11 miles per hour. That's about the same as the average bike rider. And the most amazing stat when I started Streets for All and someone told this to me, I didn't even believe them. I had always assumed LA was too big for bikes to be really that useful. But 2/3 of trips made every day in the city of LA are less than 5 miles. Half are less than 3 miles. To say it differently, half of all the cars could disappear if people biked 15 minutes or less for a lot of their trips. So when you put this all together, we have a city that is more dangerous than it needs to be, we have air that is worse than it needs to be, and we don't have a lot of other transportation options for people. We want to fix that at Streets for All. So, for those of you that are not familiar with CD3, this is the district. It includes Canoga Park, Reseda, Tarzana, Winnetka, and Woodland Hills, as well as, I think, a sliver of Encino. Very important district in the San Fernando Valley. This is the high injury network in CD3. So in the last 10 years, 125 people have been killed. Many more have been injured. And you can see that most of Ventura Boulevard and the other major arterials in CD3 are all on the high injury network. Those are the 6% of streets that cause 70% of the injuries or deaths in the city. So almost every major arterial in CD3 is extra dangerous. So with that context, we're excited to get into a discussion. We'll continue to rotate in first name order between the candidates. So Barry, we're going to turn it over to you first, and then we'll go to John and Tim as we start going through the questions. They'll kick it off. So whenever you're ready, we'd love to hear your opening statement. And you're on mute.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me this evening. I'm Barri Worth Girvan, and I'm proud to be here before you this evening as a candidate for LA City Council in the West San Fernando Valley, where I was born and raised and where I'm now raising my family. I've spent my life advocating for this community as a public servant at the city, state, and most recently at the county, where I've had a front row seat to what leadership looks like. I'm going to leverage my experience at every level of government to make LA a better place for everyone who lives and works here and make sure everyone has a seat at the table. My priorities are safe, clean neighborhoods with affordable housing and that's accessible for families, and infrastructure to support our communities, revitalizing our local economy with workforce development, job creation, and real meaningful infrastructure improvements that help us meet our goals, and making government work better for the people that it represents with transparency and accountability, which is what I've spent my career working on. And I believe transportation issues are issues of equity, livability, accessibility, and quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, John.
Hi, everyone. I'm John Rawlings, running for LA City Council here in District 3. Running on a platform focused on housing and affordability, better infrastructure, and safer streets. I'm just a dad who wants a better city for my young ones and for everybody else. My wife was born and raised here in this district, right in Reseda. That's why we decided to put down our roots and start our family here. I've really been running a campaign focused on service. Doing a lot of volunteering and organizing around picking up trash in our neighborhoods. I've worked with People's Vision Zero to paint a couple crosswalks focused on traffic safety. And we've been handing out red cards in the community as well to help our immigrants during this time. And I've been unapologetically pro housing since day one in this race. The only candidate who's publicly supported and advocated for SB 79 to build more housing near transit. And I'm running because I think we need new outside voices on city council. I'm not a political insider, just somebody who knows what it's like to struggle to afford housing. Somebody who's taken the bus and the metro, rides my bike around the neighborhood, really understands the issues the city's facing, and is ready to build more housing, fix our infrastructure, and create a more walkable, transit-oriented city. Thanks.
Thank you. Tim, over to you.
Hey. Hi, I'm Tim Gaspar, also running for CD3. I'm a lifelong Valley resident, third generation. I grew up in Canoga Park in Woodland Hills. My dad worked for the city for the Department of Water and Power, and I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. I had businesses in high school. I had business when I was at Pierce and CSUN. I built my business over 15 years, and when I sold it, I had about 65 employees a few years ago. But over the past 20 years, I've also dedicated myself to the community, working with the YMCA, the Chamber of Commerce, Boys and Girls Club, Discovery Cube LA. I have my own scholarship that I fund annually over at CSUN. And for me, I love this community. So I'm here to make the community better. I'm not running for the title. I'm running to do the job. And I think the biggest reason I'm here tonight is we lose 300 Angelenos to traffic accidents on an annual basis, and 170 of those are pedestrians. And as you mentioned earlier just now, we lose a child every 2 days, which is just inexcusable for our city to have so much more of a dangerous situation for pedestrians compared to other cities that are the same size.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Josh, over to you for our first question.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start off with an exciting topic, charter reform. For anyone that doesn't know, the charter is the guiding set of rules for the city, kind of the basic rubric that the city follows. And right now, the city is going through a process to create a ballot measure that will revise our charter, the first time we've done so in 25 years. Specific to transportation and infrastructure, Streets for All has put together a charter reform platform that consists of 4 pillars. First, we want LADOT to have ownership of repaving and sidewalks on our streets. Second, we want to give streets, which are our largest public asset, a dedicated baseline funding source in the budget, which is similar to parks and the library. Third, we support changing the city to a 2-year budget cycle and having a 5-year capital improvement plan, which is something the city doesn't have currently. And 4, we think that the Board of Public Works, which is an antiquated city structure, should be replaced with a director position and a standard executive similar to other departments. How do you think that the city charter needs to change to improve our transportation and infrastructure goals? And we're going to start with you, John.
Yeah. So on the charter, I definitely agree with all of the things that Streets for All has put out there into the world, and I think the biggest one for me is the capital infrastructure piece of it. That's something I've been advocating for with my platform since day one. I actually would love to see a 10-year plan, a longer term plan, because I think right now we're just flying blind. We see the Band-Aid approach all the time with the city when they're just slapping down some pavement and trying to fix it one by one. And it doesn't make sense to budget it that way either. So when you add in the 2-year budget as well, that helps us with more longer term planning and actually fixing things. And so I think to me, that's the biggest piece of it all is that capital infrastructure plan, but certainly, DOT owning, sidewalk and street maintenance, some of those other things, I think also just makes us have better governance and better internal departments to actually get this all done.
Thank you. All right, Tim, over to you.
Right. So yeah, I also agree with Streets for LA in regard to Streets for All in regard to most of the things that you mentioned. I do think when it comes to charter reform, there's a few aspects to it that I do worry about. And when it comes to a 2-year budget plan, LA is not on top of our current budget. So I would worry, like, if our budget from this past June was a 2-year budget when we were $1 billion in the hole and cut a lot of programs that I really hated to see cut, I certainly wouldn't want to see that continue another year on top of the year that we have. In regard to the lack of a capital infrastructure plan right now, LA is the only big city that doesn't have one. And it is something that is unique to LA, but it makes sense because LA doesn't plan for the future in general. We recently got rid of our youth development department. We closed our economic development department. When it comes to things that are long term, we're just not good at planning it. And the thing that you need to address with the charter before anything else is our current department managers have 16 bosses. So it doesn't matter how you change some of the underlying sort of smaller issues. If you don't change who's responsible in the reporting structure and the accountability structure, I think we're going to get the same results. And so I think we need to make it
you're,
where
you're at time. Thank you. All right, Barry. You're muted. We're getting the king set. It's all good.
So sorry about that again. With regard to making LADOT a charter department, I'm really interested in taking a deeper look at this. I think when we look at making specific departments chartered, we have to look at the implications, which would include making them not as nimble as we would need them to be if we need to make changes. So I'm interested in enshrining these issues, but doing it in a way that allows us to be nimble when we need to be, and that may be more looking at the enshrining it in the municipal code. Same for the second piece, which is shoring up the operational funding for library and parks. With regard to changing the city budget to a 2-year cycle and a capital infrastructure plan, I'm very much in favor of both of those. I know that we are very much in need of a capital infrastructure improvement plan and infrastructure plan. And I think that the city budget should be a 2-year cycle. And with replacing the Board of Public Works, yes, I think that should be independent of the city council. And I think we would see a better result with the director being more like other city departments.
Great, thank you. All right. Our next question is a little similar. Tim, you brought it up, but we're going to talk about the city budget. As we all know, the city's budget recently has been absolutely decimated by lower than expected tax revenues, raises to LAPD, LAFD, the fires, and ever-increasing lawsuit settlements and overspending by the city. As a result, budget allocations to departments like LADOT, Streets LA, and the Bureau of Engineering have been cut to the bone. Today, if you report a broken sidewalk, it will take about 10 years to get it fixed. A broken streetlight may take as many as 2 years. A pothole could take a year, and a speed hump request takes multiple years. Our pavement condition index, which is the quality of roads as assessed by Streets LA, is at about a 60. That's a failing score, and it's expected to decrease by about 4% next year to 56. At this rate, we will pay out more in lawsuit settlements to people hurt on our streets and sidewalks than we will spend fixing them. So the question is, how do we properly fund our streets and sidewalks so our city is not deteriorating faster than we can fix it? And as council member, what would you do to fix this situation? And we're going to start with you, Tim.
Thank you. So yeah, the topic of the budget, we could all spend a long time on this, but as I mentioned a minute ago, LA doesn't make the decisions that would actually benefit us in the future when it comes to investing money in the right places. And that is absolutely key if we want to have a better situation tomorrow. In regard to the lawsuit piece, it's not as simple as looking at the numbers. There were 2 folks, a guy that was giving his girlfriend a piggyback ride after visiting a bar. They tripped over a small crack in the middle of the night and sued the city for $3 million. And I think that is just a ridiculous amount of money. So we need to also look at how the city attorney is addressing some of these lawsuits. In regard to finding the money for the streets, I know in CD3, I'm going to take the money that's going to come from Rams Village, which is going to be very significant. And I'm going to make the improvements happen because we're not going to be able to rely on the LA City budget because the money is just not there and the revenue is not headed in the right direction. So thankfully, my office will find the money with the LA Rams project and we'll get it done.
Great, thank you. Barry, over to you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so for me, I'm very interested in prioritizing core city services, and that means to me safe streets. I've heard from too many people who have had the same experience where it takes years to get a street light fixed. And I've also heard that it's actually safe. It's faster to cheaper to pay out the liabilities than it is to fix our streets, and we cannot be in a situation where that's the case. So what I'm going to do is prioritize our core city services, and that means making cuts elsewhere if need be, but really truly focusing on our streets and making sure they're safe. CD13 has protected bike lanes and has done this successfully, and I'd like to mirror a little bit of what they've done here in the Valley, and making sure that we're not just focusing on our graded streets that are Cs, but actually fixing our F streets and being able to fix those. And that also has to do with making sure that we're not paying out so much in these settlements, and doing a better job when it comes to budgeting.
Thanks. Over to you, John.
Yeah, so outside of the capital infrastructure plan, which does allow us to budget and plan farther ahead and be more efficient with our money, I think in the short term, obviously we're in this budget crisis and we see every year all of the departments being cut that would manage these types of issues, and we continue to see LAPD's budget go up every single time. So I think we need to reevaluate where our priorities are as a city if we want to fix these types of things. But I also don't want to just be cutting everything. We need to figure out where's the revenue coming from. And to get more revenue in the city outside of just more ballot measures that increase our taxes, we just need to increase the tax base. And we can do that by building a lot more in our city. We're in a massive housing shortage, and I know there's a housing question coming up. We need to build way more, and that can increase our tax base, bring in more revenue, and we can use that to then improve the infrastructure around where we're building, but also throughout all the rest of the city as well.
Thank you. All right, over to you, Michael.
Thank you. So this is about Measure HLA, in case you couldn't tell by the graphic. The measure passed in 2024 with 2/3 of the vote. And for the first time in LA history, there's a mandate that the city implement things like bike lanes, bus lanes, and pedestrian improvements every time it repairs and works on streets, its own mobility plan. Unfortunately, despite the overwhelming result, the city has been quite slow to implement Measure HLA, and city departments are currently slow walking or even trying to sidestep implementation. So the question is, did you vote for Measure HLA? And will you force reluctant city bureaucracy to implement the city's own mobility plan? And lastly, do you believe Measure HLA should apply to projects the city and Metro do together? We will start with Barry.
Thank you. Not muted this time. Yes, I voted for Measure HLA. Yes, I will ensure that the city bureaucracy actually works to implement this. I'm moving my thing here. The city's mobility plan, and yes, I believe that the HLA should apply to projects that the city and Metro do together. I'm personally really excited about Measure HLA. I believe that we need to be doing what we've been doing at the county, actually, which is building in road improvements when we're repaving and doing a better job at this. This is going to make our streets safer, and we need to also, make sure that we're doing this in tandem with all of the infrastructure that we're looking at, and that it's safe for all modalities at all times. And so, yes, and yes for me.
Thank you.
Thank
John?
you.
Yeah, so I also voted for Measure HLA as the majority of our city did, and I would force our reluctant city bureaucracy to implement the mobility plan. It makes me sick every time I read any of the articles talking about the large asphalt repairs that we see in the city to get around implementing HLA anywhere. So that would never fly for me. And yeah, I do also think that HLA should apply to projects that both the city and Metro are doing together. It makes no sense to me that we tear up our streets for a Metro project and then have to come back and tear it up again to implement HLA if it's only city. That's where we really need to be partnering with Metro and other departments to ensure that we're not tearing up our streets multiple times and spending more money and being more efficient with our dollars.
Thank you. Tim, over to you.
So I think I'm going to join the group on most of this stuff. So absolutely, I did vote for Measure HLA, mostly because of just it's scary to ride a bike in LA. I don't know, maybe if it's just me, But any busy street, you're just waiting to get onto a smaller street where you're not so scared. In regards to forcing reluctant city bureaucrats to implement the mobility plan, yeah, at this rate, it's going to take us 106 years to finish the mobility plan. So safe to say, it makes no sense to pass something and then not do it. What was the point of passing it in the first place? And so absolutely, we need to implement it. The only exception to that would be if we had a project that we knew would impact traffic in a significantly negative way, like adding 25% or more to travel time. That would be a different scenario, or if it slows down emergency equipment. But aside from that, absolutely, let's get it done. And for the sake of efficiency, 100% we'd want to combine city and metro projects together.
Thank you. Over to you, Josh.
Thank you. All right. Housing. As we all know, the cost of housing is too high in Los Angeles. 49% of Angelinos are rent burdened, meaning they're spending more than 30% of their income on rent, and more than a quarter of Angelinos spend more than 50% of their income on rent. Last year, we sponsored SB 79. It was a bill designed to encourage denser housing around transit, and while it's an important bill, it's not enough, and there remain significant barriers to building the magnitude of new housing we need in Los Angeles to truly bring down the cost of rent. So, what do you think of SB 79? Do you support it? And how would you solve the housing affordability crisis in Los Angeles and bring down the cost of housing? And we're going to start with you, John.
I don't really. Yeah, so I 100% support SB 79. I'm the only candidate in this race who's publicly supported it, was advocating for it, trying to encourage people to call their assembly members and senators to get that thing over the line. I think to solve the affordability crisis in LA, yes, SB 79 is a great first step, but there's so much more we need to be doing. We drastically need to increase housing at every income level. That starts with ending exclusionary zoning. Right now, 74% of our city is zoned for single family. And our city council never wants to touch that, but that's a huge barrier to building more. And then obviously allowing more density near transit, commercial corridors, eliminating things like parking mandates, making more project by right so we can avoid multiple delays. And I think also relooking at Measure HLA, and while I support its goals, I think that's something that the proposals out there to exempt multifamily make a lot of sense to me, so that we're encouraging more development and more economic growth in Los Angeles.
Thank you. All right, over to you, Tim.
Hey, thank you. So I understand the need for SB 79 with the housing shortage in LA that's gotten significantly worse. One decade after another, we keep building less. I'm not a supporter of SB 79 because it took away our rights as a city and our rights as neighborhoods to decide what actually gets built in our neighborhoods. So why have a city council and why have a neighborhood council if we don't have the ability to actually have any input? And in regard to the housing affordability crisis, LA keeps doing things that look like they help. Like, for instance, doing more rent control, as an example, is something that pushes investment out of the city. And when you look at other cities in the country like Austin, when you take a look at Phoenix and so many other cities that have lower rents, it's because they increased supply, and they increased supply because people wanted to build there. That's how a free market works. And they overbuilt, which brought the rents down. Instead, LA keeps doing things on a regular basis to tell investors their money is not welcome here. So we end up building less and the rents end up higher. It's a supply and demand issue at the end of the day.
Thank you. Over to you, Barry.
Thank you so much. I actually worked in the legislature when SB 9 was going through, and I did a lot of work with our communities to try to build support in our communities and work together on this. And one of my priorities is building transit-oriented development. And so I think what we really need to be doing is tying our housing to transit and making sure that we are building more transit so that we can be building more transit-oriented development. There's an issue right now with the definitions of SB 79, and what's happening is it's actually in certain parts of the city creating a little bit of an issue with certain council members who are not signing off on the local preferred alternatives at Metro because they're concerned about community backlash over the additional housing that it will trigger. So we need to work with our partners in Sacramento to be able to clearly define this. And for me also, and I'm prepared to do that. And for me, I think to solve this crisis, we need to build a heck of a lot more of affordable housing near transit to make sure it's easy for people and accessible for people. And that's how we're going to get this, is to increase our supply.
Great. Over to you, Michael.
Thanks, Josh. So CD3 has a key section of the LA River that currently lacks a bike path, and there's a project in the works to plug that gap. Currently, the city is moving forward with a plan that would have an at-grade crossing at Reseda near Van Owen. At-grade crossings make bike paths less appealing. They delay bike riders waiting for the light to change so they can cross just to benefit driver convenience. The question is, if elected, will you commit to intervening and finding the money to do it right and making an undercrossing? Uh, and secondly, would you further commit to plugging the gaps, any other gaps that exist within CD3's portion of the LA River bike path? We'll start with Tim.
Thank you. I absolutely will support that. So I was on the bike path the other day, and it's when you're riding on the bike path and you have most of the bike path that goes underneath the roadway, so you don't need to wait for the crosswalk or wait for the light to change. It makes it such a more enjoyable experience where you can kind of zone out. And when you get to these parts that all of a sudden it just stops and you need to go up to street level, it's just disruptive. It would be so nice if the entire thing was just all the way through without disruption. So absolutely, I support that. And also, we're not far from doing that. There was just a couple spots when I checked it out that were disrupted where it didn't go all the way through. So I think to be able to do that is absolutely possible. And I think the bike path that we created with the benches and the lighting, it turned out so well, for lack of a better way to put it, that I'm committed to doing more projects like that improve the community. They add to the quality of life to the folks that live here. And I absolutely support doing more of the projects like that.
Thank you. Barry?
Yes, I love the LA River, and I think the river is really the perfect opportunity for connectivity that doesn't require us to touch or shouldn't require us to do much with surface streets. So I'm really interested in looking to find the money for this and seeing how this will play out. I think this is really important for safety and accessibility for the bike path, and to really build it out and connect it so that everybody can use it from end to end. There are lots of parts in other parts of the city that where it's not even built out, and we really need to really connect it and bring people out to this part of the valley through the bike path. So I think we also need to, have more shade and just make sure that it's really accessible and safe and clean for people to use. And this is a big piece of that. So I'm really interested in working together to plugging these gaps and working together to figure out how to do that.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, if elected, I would commit to finding the money and doing the undercrossing in that spot along the LA River. That's actually right down the street from where I am, and I'm always annoyed that I can't ride along the river and I'm just riding on the streets when I'm over there. And I think we can also pair that with, I believe that they're looking to do improvements to Reseda Park, which is right there along the LA. There's a portion they want to improve along the LA River. So is there opportunity there to work between multiple departments and say, hey, if we're doing the undercrossing, but we're also fixing the park right next to it, can we do both at the same time? Yeah, I'd love to also plug all the gaps along CD3's portion and encourage my fellow council members to plug the gaps along all the other parts of the LA River in the valley. So it sure would be a dream to be able to get on the bike in Canoga Park and ride that thing all the way to Long Beach following the LA River.
Thank you. Josh, over to you.
Great. Topanga Canyon Boulevard is known as State Route 27 and is a state highway owned by Caltrans. Caltrans is looking at doing a complete street project on Topanga Canyon Boulevard, which would potentially include a bike facility. Do you support protected bike lanes on Topanga Canyon, even if removing parking or a travel lane was required to make them fit? Are you interested in having Caltrans relinquish Topanga Canyon to the city to provide for more local control? And we're going to start with you, Barry.
Thank you so much. Yes. So Topanga Canyon Boulevard in the CD3 part of Topanga Canyon Boulevard is actually 3 lanes in each direction. It's really a wide street, and it's an opportunity for other mobility options like, bike lanes and, pedestrian safety where we haven't seen it yet. So yes, I am very interested in this, and I'm very interested in working with the state on this. Having worked at the county, I know how difficult it was to work with to work with Caltrans to get what we needed done when we were having the issues along Topanga Canyon Boulevard last year with the walk slide. And I think local control is always a good thing because I know how difficult it is. But I do have the experience of working across these jurisdictions, and I would be very interested in digging in deeper on this.
Great. Over to you, Tim.
So on Dumetz and Topanga and Woodland
I'm
Hills,
sorry,
there's a red.
I skipped you, John. That was my bad.
All good. Yes, I support protected bike lanes along Topanga Canyon. It's very much needed. I mean, I'd also love to see a bike or a bus lane as well. But yeah, I think we need more protected bike lanes all throughout our district. Reseda Boulevard is actually, I believe, it's the longest continuous bike lane in Los Angeles, and it's right here in our district. And I'd love to see that along more major streets like Topanga Canyon. And if Caltrans relinquishing control of it to the city allows for us to get that done faster and more efficiently, then 100% I'd be interested in working with them to get that done.
Great. All right. I'm sorry about that, Tim. Over to you.
No worries, no worries. Great. So on Dements and Topanga, there's a place called Rib Ranch, restaurant that's been there a lot of years. It's fantastic. Definitely worth trying. And when they put a left-hand turn lane right there, they had to get rid of the parking that was in front of the restaurant. And it had a seriously negative impact on that business. As if restaurants in LA don't have it hard enough, a surprise like that is just, it's awful. So do I want a bike lane down Topanga? Absolutely. Would I be willing to sacrifice a lane of traffic or parking? No, the people that park on Topanga need to park on Topanga. There's all the apartments along Topanga. You can't just get rid of the parking. Where are they going to go? And in regard to removing a traffic lane on Topanga, no way. If you've been on there during any sort of rush hour, you know that's a highway, and it gets a lot of usage. And I wouldn't want the city to take it over either. I don't want the city to lose city control to the state, but I'm not looking over to take over state pieces for the city. We can't handle what we have or the cost of what we have.
Thank you. Over to you, Michael.
Okay, so another exciting project in the district connecting Canoga Park. This project successfully won the biggest ATP grant ever given by the state, which was $31 million. And it will transform 7 miles in Canoga Park with protected bike lanes, traffic calming, roundabouts, and urban cooling features. I'm assuming that means trees, but maybe not. Despite the large award, the project still has a $10 million gap in funding. What do you think of this project? And as council member, will you commit to delivering this project, which means working to find the $10 million that's missing in order to have it fully funded and move forward? And we'll start with John.
I think this is an awesome project, and I love it because it's in Canoga Park, which is a part of our district that often gets overlooked. And there's certainly a lot of issues in the area that I've read through this project and what it's trying to accomplish. And part of it's really hitting a lot of different things. They're doing the traffic calming on some of the major streets, the streets that we talked about in the intro that are very, very dangerous, but also improving like the orange line and the bike trail along there to do the cooling. I'm pretty sure it is trees. But yeah, I would definitely commit to delivering that project, finding the 10 million that we need to get it moved all the way forward, because this is a key vital part of our district. Solid business district there along Sherwood Way. And I think making it more bikeable, walkable, and safer would be a great move for our district.
Thank you. Tim.
Great. So same as what John said, Canoga Park, parts of Winnetka, Reseda get neglected a lot. So having this sort of investment into Canoga Park is fantastic. I do support finding the money. I think that we can find the money, the 10 million. In regard to the cooling, I think part of that was the cool pavement that gets utilized, but that doesn't last as long as normal pavement. So in regard to trees and anything we could do to cool off that area, I support that 100%. One thing that I'd like to do, and I think we can fit it in with the 10 million is, part of this is going to impact the parts of the G line, the orange line. And what I'd like to do is take part of this money to set up particular areas where the stops are for the street vendors. So when you have like the taco vendors and the fruit vendors, that there's some issues going on between the vendors and businesses. I think the transit stops is the perfect place to put those food vendors because it's a win-win for everybody. And I absolutely love the project. We can find the 10 million. And I think it'll improve the quality of life in Canoga Park significantly.
Thank you. Barry.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, the cooling is cooling paint. It is cooling paint on our hot streets, and we need more of this. Yes, I'm very much in favor of this project, and I'm looking forward to finding the funding for it. I think, as both of my counterparts here have said as well, we need to make sure that we're investing in Canoga Park, Winnetka, Reseda in our district, and we also know that, for example, in 2024, we had more than 300 traffic fatalities in the city of Los Angeles, and 170 of those were pedestrian fatalities. That's more than half. We need this, and we really need to be doing it in the parts of our district where the need is the greatest. So, yes, I'm excited about this, and I'm looking forward to working on this.
Thank you. Josh, over to you.
Appreciate it. All right. This is about speed and red light cameras. Automated traffic enforcement can both increase the enforcement of our laws and decrease unwanted interactions with armed police officers doing routine traffic stops. In the past few years, California has legalized speed cameras, which the city is in the process of implementing, and refined red light cameras to make them work better for cities. There is also a proposal to legalize noise cameras, which would ticket illegally loud exhaust noise from cars. What is your opinion of this trend of automated enforcement? Do you support cameras as a better way to enforce traffic laws? And if not, how do you suggest we clamp down on drivers that speed, run red lights, or disturb the peace with loud car exhausts? And we are going to start with you, Tim.
Right, thank you. If this was an in-person conversation, I would look to the audience and ask, when was the last time you saw somebody pulled over by LAPD? And I bet not very many hands would go up. LAPD, for a number of reasons, is not really able to enforce current traffic laws, and that's why we see folks not enforcing the law. So 100% I support this. When the city had tried it before a few years ago, there were some issues where we couldn't enforce it because a police officer didn't actually a police officer wasn't the one giving the ticket. We have a way to fix that. I spoke to LAPD about it already. This would be a fantastic tool to be able to make sure that folks are actually following traffic laws. And so I'm a huge proponent of it for both the traffic laws themselves, red lights, speeding, but also with the illegally loud exhaust. I think that does impact the quality of life for folks. So I think, Beverly Hills implemented this years ago, and it has helped immensely with a number of traffic accidents. I think it's a win for the community. Absolutely.
Thank you. Barry?
Yes, I am very interested in this. Actually, at the county level, next week, we're celebrating our first ribbon cutting on PCH. We know how many people have died on PCH every year, and due to speed. And we have speed racing in our district. We absolutely need to use the tools that are at our disposal. And this is a very important one. We need to be using these tools to make sure that we are protecting the people who are our pedestrians on our streets. Laura Friedman and Ben Allen passed AB 645 to allow this pilot program in 6 cities, and LA is one of them. And I'm very much looking forward to doing this. And also, when we do this, we may also need to make sure that the companies that that we're not dealing with third-party private companies to run these cameras, and that if we are, that we're conducting a serious RFP process with the utmost due diligence. But yes, this is absolutely a tool that we should be using to prioritize safety on our streets.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I also support using cameras to enforce traffic laws. As was mentioned, it shouldn't be the job of the police to be pulling people over for traffic stops, especially as we've seen it turn violent or be a lot worse than just a speeding ticket. It's certainly a way to keep people safe that way as well. But we saw in San Francisco, they've been doing the speed cameras as well, and I think it's roughly 70% or so decrease in speeding violations in the area that they've been testing it out. So LA is well behind, and we need to catch up with putting these cameras out there. And my similar to Barry, my only caveat is making sure we're using the right companies to do it. We just want to ensure that whatever data is collected is not being shared with ICE or other federal agencies, given the climate that we're currently in. But yeah, certainly a big supporter of doing this to slow people down.
Thanks. Thank you. Over to you, Michael.
So another question about technology. Waymos are everywhere in LA, and they're becoming very popular. According to recent data, Waymos see 92% fewer crashes that result in injuries and 96% reduction in crashes overall. The cars in general are also much safer for pedestrians and cyclists, as they don't speed, aren't distracted, and don't get impatient. The question is, what do you think of driverless cars, and do you support Waymo's expansion? And we will start with Barry.
Yes. So thank you. Yes, I think this is a really interesting opportunity for us to be utilizing technology. That said, I think anything automated, must be making our streets safer, and I think that's what the data has been showing here. Anything, we all know that the machine is actually safer than the human error. So I think it's safer, and with the data backing that up, yes, I am definitely prioritizing this in terms of pedestrian and transit safety. And also, the thing to note about it is that Waymos don't need parking spots most of the time. And so it also reduces the need for extra parking, which is helpful. I'm very open to this technology as long as we're prioritizing the pedestrian safety, and the data is there to back it up.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, no, they're great.
I like the Waymos and the driverless cars. I've seen some who are concerned that maybe it's encouraging car culture and getting more cars on the road. But my point to that would be I don't think we're ever going to go to zero cars in Los Angeles. So if we're looking at just safety and things like that, certainly Waymos and driverless cars is much safer than what we're seeing with the human driver. And so, yeah, definitely I support it. I would support the expansion. When I travel to a city that has Waymo, I love being able to take the Waymo instead of getting in an Uber because I know that I'm going to be safer and everybody else on the road is going to be safer as well. And yeah, I support it.
Right.
Yeah, and I probably should have said this up front, but it's only city side right now, not in the valley. So that's part of the expansion. Okay, Tim.
Yep. Yeah, I also support it. Over 90% of vehicle accidents are due to human error. And so with Waymo and other automated vehicles, you completely take that out of the equation. And so I think from a safety standpoint, numbers don't lie. So I support it 100%. Yeah, I'd like to really see them in the valley. I'm jealous when I see them on the west side in Santa Monica, and definitely would like to try it out. I think, you also have the added benefit of a productivity bump. If, you're in one of these, you might be able to get some work done or perhaps read a book or any number of things. My only concern is with these, this type of technology and change, it happens quickly. And this is a concern that I have with AI in general. And if, let's say this moves really quick and all of a sudden we have Waymo on our valley streets instead of Uber or instead of Lyft, that means a lot of folks are going to lose their income really quickly, including taxi drivers, and maybe more quickly than they can find another job. And I'm not saying it's a reason not to do Waymo. It's something we want to pay attention to.
Okay, our last two questions. Josh, you're up.
Thank you. All right, this is about Metro. LA Metro is our county transportation agency, obviously. And right now, we're undergoing the most ambitious rail expansion program in the entire country. We're building the most, we are gathering the most taxpayer dollars, and the future of LA Transit is actually really bright. These decisions impact the entire LA region and people's ability to get outside of the car. Would you be interested in serving on the Metro Board as part of the mayor's appointees? If so, what are your ideas on how to improve Metro and make it better for residents, specifically in CD3? And we're going to start with you, John.
Yeah, I would love to serve on the Metro Board. I think it'd be a great opportunity to direct the future of our city and what we can do with public transit. How we can improve Metro. I mean, the Sepulveda Transit Corridor is going to be huge for us. I think when we look at CD3, that's outside of the Orange Line's amazing, coming right through the heart of our district. But outside of that, it's kind of the same issues that you hear from others about slow buses. They're not frequent enough. They're late. Those types of things. And so I think to make it work better for residents of CD3, it's introducing more dedicated bus lanes in our district to speed up the buses that are not the Orange Line. And even on the Orange Line, I think we should be timing the traffic lights to them so that those buses never ever stop unless they're picking and dropping somebody off. And just making sure that I'd love to see them speed up the process to get the Orange Line converted to rail. But that's way in the future.
Thank you. Over to you, Tim.
Right. So yeah, absolutely, I'd be interested in serving on the Metro Board, if for no other reason than to actually be able to represent the Valley. The Valley always ends up being the redheaded stepchild. I think that the G line should have been light rail from day one, and I know at that time we had a law prohibiting rail, but I don't know how much of an effort was really made to get around that. We could have spent what would have been, now would have looked like a reasonable amount of money to make that light rail. And so I'd like to make sure that we have representation for the Valley. And also, I want to use things I learned. I spent about 2 years going downtown every day. I would take the rapid bus line, which actually had a transponder that would turn the red lights green. It didn't seem like it always did it, but that was the idea. So I would take that to the red line, then in the red line into downtown. And I definitely learned a lot from that experience, like the time the train broke and I had to walk through Hollywood at like 6 p.m. at night, like literally a mile and a half to catch the next train because the buses were full. It wasn't any fun. So I would like to take that experience to Metro to be able to make positive change.
Thank you. All right, Barry.
Yes, I would love the opportunity to serve on Metro and represent the Valley. I believe that the Valley is a transit desert, I call it. I believe that we have a severe lack of public transportation options out here. We are limited to the Metro G line, or formerly known as the Orange Line, and I used to take that to the Red Line when I was going downtown, but it wasn't always accessible and it didn't always take me everywhere I needed to go. And so I would really look for opportunities to build out our public transit here in the West San Fernando Valley and make it more accessible, uh, more subway out here, but also, BRTs and things like that. Additionally, I would prioritize the San Fernando Valley with the Olympics coming and making sure that we get our fair share of resources for projects around the Olympics and beyond. And I'm excited about the Sepulveda Transit Corridor and all of that's going to do for us here. And just making sure that also bringing in Streets for All when we talk about opportunities at Metro to mitigate the vehicle miles traveled as well. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here.
Thank you. All right, Michael, our final question.
Okay, about to go to audience questions. Our last curated question is about parking. The city of LA is estimated to have 4 parking spaces for every housing unit. New underground parking costs $70,000 per space, while parking above ground can cost up to $50,000 per space in a structure. Getting rid of parking minimums, not getting rid of parking, but getting rid of parking minimums would decrease the cost of housing. Do you support getting rid of parking minimums in Los Angeles to help lower the cost of housing? And would you consider supporting parking maximums near transit to encourage car-light lifestyles near high-quality rail and bus transit? We're going to start with Tim.
Hey. So I want to make sure I explain this answer because it might sound controversial at first. So I don't support either. I don't want to see minimums and I don't want to see maximums. And when I say that, it's because I think we can let a free market dictate what an apartment should do. If you build an apartment building and you don't have a single parking space, folks probably aren't going to want to rent your apartment, or at least if they own a vehicle. So I think by leaving a free market, we allow more to get built. And that is the point, right? For people to want to build here. But with that, and this is critical, we have got to have the ability to, if a neighborhood next door gets overrun with vehicles that are taking all of the parking away from the residents, we need to be able to put in place permit parking. And then that needs to be enforced, because what we can't have is have folks that live in neighborhoods that all of a sudden there's development nearby and their street is completely full with cars and there's nowhere for them to park. We have to protect that as well. So we have to be able to do the enforcement piece also. So that's my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Barry.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm very interested in parking minimums and parking maximums, particularly around transit. And I think this has to be tied to transit and transit-oriented development. I think there's opportunity here to have a really meaningful, this is particularly meaningful around transit corridors. So we have a housing crisis and we have to do everything we can to mitigate and reduce the delays when it comes to building housing. And a big part of that is making sure that we can build close to transit so that parking isn't a hindrance, ensuring that the building parking isn't a hindrance. So we need to make sure that we're building near transit to do this successfully. And that is what I'm focused on.
Thank you. And John.
So I support getting rid of parking minimums. That'll be definitely a key piece in helping lowering the cost of housing. And it just makes sense. Like Tim made a good point about let the market decide. If we're building housing without parking, then people that don't have cars are going to want to live, and vice versa. So it makes a lot of sense. And then I also think that I would support parking maximums near transit, so we can encourage the car light lifestyles. And as we just discussed in the previous question, Metro is putting a ton of money into expanding our transit, so we should encourage people to use it. I think parking maximums is another good strategy to explore.
Okay, we're going to go to audience questions now. Our first question, and we'll start with Barry. When was the last time you took public transportation or biked in CD3? How often do you ride public transportation or bike in CD3? Barry.
Thank you. I wish I could say I biked. I don't bike, but I wish I did. But I would love to do more of it. I've taken public transit to get downtown, probably to get downtown for work a couple months ago when I was going downtown. So yeah, I would take the Orange Line transition to the Red Line and get off Civic Center. So I like doing it. I used to do it a lot more, and I wish that we had it set up so that a lot more people felt comfortable doing it. But I'd like to get back on a bike.
Thank you. John?
Let's see. So I took the bus on Sunday. I took the train on Saturday. I try to do as much transit as I can. I live very close walking distance to the Orange Line, so that it makes it easy to get around the district or to get that over to the Red Line so I can get into downtown. My bike, I jumped on. We've been so busy with the campaign, I haven't had a chance to I popped my tire a month ago, so maybe it's been a month since I last got on my bike. But been meaning to get that.
Thank you. Tim?
Great. Yeah, I biked on Monday. So my office used to be a mile from my house. So I would ride my bike like 1 or 2 days a week. It's not a ton, but if you've ever ridden a bike with a tie and a suit jacket on, it's not super comfortable. But I enjoyed it. I like the fresh air and everything. So I get out on my bike now at least once a week recreationally. In regard to public transportation, during the period I was working downtown, I would take it every day. But now I really don't. So, the nature of campaigning, just as an example, is going like a lot of different places every day. And the reality is, the public transit in LA right now is not conducive to that. In order for folks to use public transit, and as myself included, it has to be either faster or more convenient, or at least the same as a vehicle. And when I take a look at my schedule, and if I'm going downtown and then I'm going to go to Westwood and then I'm going to come back to the Valley, and I take a look at what it would take to do public transit, it would add like an hour or two to my commute. So that's why I drive a lot of the time. One of the issues.
Okay. Our next question, people are still asking about HLA, so we're going to ask it this way. This person says HLA was introduced to address infrastructure repairs in line with the Mobility Plan 2035. However, departments are changing work scope to go around HLA requirements. As council member, how will you get HLA proceed as planned? How will you kind of force HLA through the system over the objections of reluctant city departments? We'll start with you, John.
So I think that's a really good question. And I think specifically to CD3, what can be done is, we hear it all the time that every city council member essentially has their little fiefdom of their district. And so for me, it's using the power that I have in my office to lean on the departments that are trying to avoid doing the HLA improvements, and at least in my district, making sure that that's happening and we don't see the large asphalt repair type of stuff. I'd love to be able to continue to push on them and get more done across the whole city. But I think at least if we have some council members that are starting in their own district and saying, no, we have to implement HLA, that starts to set the example for the other council members to do the same.
Thank you. Tim?
Yep. So I think the fact that we even have to ask this question, so, this measure got passed, right? We all agreed that this is what needed to happen. We have our mobility plan. So the idea that it still doesn't happen, I think, is the issue. And so, uh, the heads of our city departments, they have 16 bosses. They've got the 15 city council members, and then they've got the mayor. And that's an issue. And so if you worked at a company where you had 16 bosses, you either wouldn't get anything done or you would just completely pull your hair out and quit. And so I think we need to start with the question of how exactly, with this law being on the books, is it not being followed? Where is the issue? Where's communication breaking down, or how is somebody able to just decide to ignore what the voters asked for? I think that's the issue, because one person like myself, or any city council member, whatever it is not going to be able to change that on their own. There needs to be a change in regard to the system in general.
Thank you. Barry?
Yeah, so I agree with that in part. The city departments are accountable to the mayor, and this is going to require work across offices and working really proactively with the mayor's office and with other council offices to ensure that that we're proactive in working with the city departments. Luckily, I have some experience working internally with departments and trying to ensure we get results. That's what I've spent a lot of years doing, and so it shouldn't require this much proactive effort, but the fact that it does, we need to be more proactive in ensuring that it's that we address how the system works as a whole, but also working within the system with the mayor's office and ensuring that we are working together to get results from our departments, and that we're staying on top of it to ensure that we are making streets safer. That's ultimately what this is about, and it was voted on by the voters.
Next question. What do you enjoy about CD3? Unfortunately, as a non-driver, it's difficult for me to get there, but what are some of your favorite spots or recommendations? And we'll start with Tim.
Oh man, my favorite thing about the district is the diversity. There's just every single ethnic group is represented in CD3, and that just makes it such a great place to meet people at community events, and just such a great place to live where all your neighbors are different. It's just a really neat feeling, because I know when I go somewhere and travel and it's not as diverse, I absolutely miss it. So some of my places, I'm going to forget the key ones, I'm sure. Dan's Super Subs is legendary. You got to go there. I mentioned Rib Ranch. That's fantastic. For breakfast, I recommend Bobby's Coffee Shop, the Nats that's nearby there. Leo and Lily's are all great ones. In Canoga Park, you've also got a Nats right there. In regard to Mexican food, there's a place on Satacoin, Topanga, that I'm blanking on the name, that's fantastic. The Mission Burrito on Platte and Victory is very good. Man, I could write a list and email it to you, but I love CD3 for all of those reasons.
Barry?
Thank you. So I love this. Thank you for this question. So on the weekends, I can be found, or when I have any free time at all. So Warner Center is a thriving, bustling hub of the West Valley, and it's in the heart of CD3. There's shopping. There's restaurants, countless restaurants, shopping, and it's walkable. It's connected to a mall, the village. There's housing, mixed use housing, and there's a huge park, Warner Center Park, where people gather in the summer and every Sunday, and it's one of my favorite parts of the district. There's also great hiking trails in Woodland Hills and Tarzana that I love, and there's I was going to say the LA River, which you all probably know, but it runs right through our district. And the beginning of the LA River is actually in our district at right around Canoga Park High School. And so it's actually a really special place that we have the beginning of the LA River. So there's so many more places, and I only have so much time, but I love it.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I've really been enjoying coming out to Canoga Park. There's a lot of really good legacy businesses, and for those of you without a car, you can get here. It might take you a while from downtown, but you can take the Orange Line all the way to Sherman Way. But you've got Cavaretta's over here. Jesse's Grind is a great local coffee shop. They've got one spot here. They got another one in Winnetka. There's a lot of these like great vintage like clothing stores, or just other types of vintage stuff. It's really artsy and just feels so unique. I'm glad that Barry mentioned the hiking. Just drive up Reseda Boulevard all the way to the top, and between there and the bottom, there's a handful of different trails you can do, and also some in the Woodland Hills. Yeah, I think it's just that diversity also that Tim talked about, and just going to all these different parts of our district and just finding the old businesses, those old restaurants, and just that's why I love biking around here, is because you view the city differently on the bike and see just the history of it better than.
All right. A question about a specific street. DeSoto is 7 lanes wide and feels like a freeway. It has a very thin bike lane. Would you support and push to make it safer for bike riders by removing a lane on each side and making the bike lane protected? And we'll start with Barry.
Yeah, so I live off of DeSoto, and I have a personal vested interest in this. Pedestrian safety is incredibly important to me, and looking at road diets in this part of our district, I think it could be really interesting, and I'm really interested in taking a closer look at this. I'm very concerned about the safety issues along this street, and like anybody, I want to be able to make sure that people can bike safely, that pedestrians can walk, families can access it. And I think I'm very interested in this. So yes, thank you for bringing that up.
John?
Yeah, I very much would support protected bike lanes and removing the lanes of traffic to do it. I think I mentioned one of the other questions. I'd love to see that on all of our streets. Not just Reseda Boulevard, but DeSoto, Winnetka, Topanga, like all of them. We have disjointed bike paths here and there, but getting them all connected and continuous and protected. Very much support.
Thank you. Tim?
Yeah. Look, I love the idea of it, but the first thing you have to do, and I would say this with any major street that you potentially want to remove a lane, you've got to do the traffic study first. Because if removing a lane is not going to have a significant impact on traffic, 100%, that would be, to have that would be fantastic. If you do a traffic study and you realize that it's going to increase traffic and increase transit times by, I'm going to use that 25% number because that's significant, then it's not such a good idea. And I think that's something that, data is important. And so when I make a decision like that, I take a look at the data in regard to whether or not it makes sense. The last thing that I'll mention is, in regard to the traffic piece, I'm optimistic that with the advent of the self-driving cars that we're talking about, and just the fact that they have less accidents by, a significant percentage, I do think that you really will have like air taxis and things. I know it sounds science fiction, but it's not that far off. Potentially, we could get to a point where we could do that without more traffic. We might not be there yet, though.
Okay. Next question from Andres. The San Fernando Valley sees very few open street events like CicLAvia. Would you commit to bringing more of these events to our region and funding for them? And what would be your ideal CD3 West Valley CicLAvia route? We'll start with John.
Oh, my route. The route is the one I'm trying to figure out, but I very much would support more CicLAvia out here in the valley. We did have one in our district. It was 2 winters ago. They did along Sherman Way. I don't want to cheat, but I almost want to just do that one again. I love Sherman Way and all the businesses and things that we have. It was such a great time 2 years ago being able to walk up and down, and I know. We ended up walking instead of biking that one with a couple little ones in the stroller, but we're able to stop in into some shops and get some food. I don't know what the other ideal route would be, but I'm just going to go Sherman Way for now.
Thank you. Tim?
Yep. So definitely Sherman Way. I would, and to answer the question, absolutely, I'd want to bring more events like that to the valley. Again, it goes back to that redheaded stepchild comment. Sherman Way, and I'd have to. It'd be hard, though, to say, like, do we do it in Canoga Park near Topanga, where potentially, or not potentially, but that Madrid theater will be open pretty soon next to the new Taxco theater, or do we do it, just to the east of Reseda Boulevard, where we're going to have the ice rink open and the Reseda theater open relatively soon, hopefully. But there's one significant issue, though, that I want to point out. In regard to CicLAvia and in regard to all the different parades that we do, I helped organize the Memorial Day parade. I'm on that board. We got a $17,000 or $18,000 bill from DOT for the parade. It was the bill for having to close the streets. The Chatsworth Christmas parade, holiday parade got the same bill. That's a problem. We have to figure out a way for folks to be able to shut down streets and have parades without it costing that kind of money. And I am concerned about that.
Barry?
Yes, I love CicLAvia. I worked in the mayor's office when we first started CicLAvia and first brought this to Los Angeles, and we were researching it when it was CicLAvia, and we brought it to LA and made it CicLAvia. So yes, I'm excited, and I'm always the one saying it hasn't been in the valley, or if it has been in the valley, it's been in another part of the valley and not the West Valley. And yes, it has been in the West Valley now, but not enough. So yes, resoundingly yes, enthusiastic to bring this to the West Valley again. Yes, I agree. Along Sherman Way is a wonderful route. It was a great route. I would also even push it along Topanga, like we were talking about earlier. I would love to close Topanga and have opportunities for people, maybe even through Warner Center or closer to Ventura Boulevard. I think that would be very exciting. But even Sherman Way to Reseda, I think is great too. There's a lot of options, and I'm very excited about doing this again in the valley as many times as possible.
Sorry, guys, we have a lot of cyclists in the audience. One more bike question. It's about the way LADOT protects bike lanes. So the question is, would you push for LADOT to use actual protection for bike lanes like concrete instead of plastic posts, which get run over repeatedly? They're referring to the K71 plastic bollards. When you look at the marketing for those bollards, they are a selling point is they won't damage a car. That doesn't mean they won't protect a life. They just won't damage a car. Concrete's obviously more expensive. There's other things in between. But would you push for better protection along our protected bike lanes? And we'll start with Tim.
Yep, absolutely. So when you think if somebody's not paying attention and they veer into a bike lane, what's more important, protecting the person on a bike or protecting the car? So obviously it's protecting the person on the bike. So I do think it should be concrete or something that actually stops vehicles. Will vehicles veer off and hit the concrete and destroy their car? Absolutely. There's actually some metal railing right now on Reseda, right near the orange line that protects part of the bike lane, but it's also like a bus stop. And that's been taken out at least twice and it's very visible. That's not the issue. So yeah, the reality is it will damage cars, but the important thing is protecting someone's life. And so I think concrete is the way to go.
Thank you. Barry?
Yes, I'm interested in this, and I'm interested in using irrigated concrete to make it consistent with our urban canopy objectives. And yes, I also think that this is helpful as long as we are conscientious of parking and that parking is accessible and easy to maneuver and not, dangerous, unlike the reverse angle parking that we have in part of this district. But yes, I am very interested in this.
And John?
Yeah, 100% support doing the concrete, so the plastic bollard. The cost of a human life is far greater than the additional cost of concrete. Sure, we're also spending with piping bollards all the time, because I see them constantly in our district, just on the ground or missing entirely. Yeah, I fully support doing the concrete, truly actually protected bike lanes.
Everyone's supportive. I probably should have asked how you would pay for it because that's the biggest problem with concrete curbs. Okay, moving on to a land use question. The question is, would you support ACUs, accessory commercial units, in single-family home zones? And full disclosure, I did not plant this question there, but Streets for All may or may not be introducing a bill soon in Sacramento to legalize this. The idea is to legalize tienditas and tiny home businesses where people can legally sell food out of their home. The idea is to not make it so someone has to get in their car and drive just to get a bite to eat or just to get a carton of eggs or a gallon of milk. So that's the idea behind the bill, and we'll see what happens in Sacramento. But the question is, would you support it? We'll start with Barry.
Yeah, I think this is already happening in certain communities, and I think there's certain communities that are gonna that it's gonna work well in. And I'm interested in taking a look at this bill and seeing how this works in our communities. But I definitely am interested in learning more about this. I think there are some real benefits to it. I'm interested in seeing, as I do with everything, community input and seeing how our community feels about it. But I'm interested in looking at it more.
Okay. John?
Yeah, I like this idea. I feel like I actually see it here and there in our own district. Or maybe they're doing it, under the table there. But I definitely there's parts of town I'll be going through where I'll see somebody set up selling food or something in their driveway, and so I definitely support it, and I love the idea around creating more walkable neighborhoods and supporting small local businesses. And I mean it's your property, you should be able to do what you want with it, right? And so I support that.
Tim?
Yeah, it's I have a friend that opens their living room every weekend for soccer, and people come in and get shrimp cocktails and just watch the soccer game over in Pacoima, and they've probably done that for 30 years. So to the point John and Barry made, I think people already do it, and so this would give us an avenue to actually have folks get licensed and do it legitimately, and then also that has the added benefit of making sure that there's certain health procedures that are followed, and that the city hopefully gets some revenue from it. But if we're going to do that, we have to enforce it. So, the city has a licensing program for the food vendors, but 98 to 99% of the food vendors are not licensed because there's no reason to get licensed, because the city and the county don't enforce anything with the food vendors. And I mean, literally nothing. And so I absolutely support the idea, but we've got to have a process that is fair to everybody, and then we actually have to enforce it. But that all being said, I do think it sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay. Next question is about LADOT transit services. What are your plans for improving and expanding LADOT transit services? And just for clarity and for context, yes, we have metro and buses, but LADOT also operates Dash and other city-run services. So what are your plans for improving and expanding the transit services LADOT operates? Starting with John.
Hmm. I mean, I'm all for expansion of anything that involves transit, including LADOT. To be honest, I haven't given a deep thought on DOT versus Metro. I've really been focused on a lot of the Metro projects. But certainly the Dash and other bus services that we have through DOT are important, and I'd love to see them expanded like any bus service, in terms of more frequency, you know, and then ways to improve ridership, and if doing things like bus lanes and those type of things could also improve DOT times, it can help everybody.
Sorry, I was the one on mute this time. Tim.
I think any improvements we'd need to make would probably be focused on that, the last mile problem. So one thing that Metro is about to do, and I think that DOT could do it also, in Warner Center, there's a bus line that just goes circles around the Rams property essentially, and it's the not only the least profitable Metro line, but it's the most expensive, loses the most money. So what Metro's doing is they're putting in place. I can't remember the name of the company, but it's like a little 6 to 8 seat, like a little electric wagon that people order it from their phone, and it gets there within a minute or two. Then it's $1, and it takes you a mile to the orange line stop or wherever you need to go. And I think that's something that's convenient. It's inexpensive, it's fast, and it solves that issue for the last mile, which for a lot of this type of transportation is the issue. So I think maybe that's something DOT could check out as well.
Barry?
Yeah, one of the things I said earlier was that I'm in favor of prioritizing public transit and street improvements when it comes to using ballot measure dollars over highway capacity. And I think this is another area where we could look to do that. I think, look, like I've taken the Dash around downtown, and I know people who have taken it around here in CD3, but it's not as robust as it could be. And it could be a really good, reliable resource resource because we only have the orange line. So people have to take other BRT options out here. And so being able to prioritize that, I think, will help, especially around the Warner Center and around the Sherman Way corridor, which is also, often neglected. And we've talked a lot about the businesses that are coming up along this area, and it's being revitalized. So I think making sure we have robust dash routes in these areas and that can help people get to the metro, that first last mile as well. I think that these are opportunities for the dash.
Thank you. Next question is about speed limits in the district. Do you support lowering speed limits on all major streets in CD3 to either 30 or 35 miles per hour? If not, how would you justify higher speed limits on streets where people are walking and biking? And we'll start with Tim.
So it doesn't make a difference if we lower the speed limit if nobody enforces traffic laws. So right now, I've seen people going 80 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour down some of our city streets. And so in certain transit areas, would I think it's a good idea to lower it from 35 to 30? Sure. I think in particular areas where there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, that makes sense. But I think in regard to that, I think we need to have an enforcement model that works first, because otherwise you can make, speed limit whatever you want and whatever other traffic laws. But if those laws aren't enforced, it doesn't make a difference at the end of the day. But, to your question, anything that's going to put the priority of safety over everything else is something that I'll support, because at the end of the day, human life has got to be the priority with any question like that.
Okay. Barry?
So the way that speed limits are set is in coordination with the state, and this is going to require coordination with our state partners to review and reform that process. And I have strong relationships at the state, and this is something that I am interested in looking into. I as well am. Anything that prioritizes safety on our streets, to me, is something that is worth pursuing. And I would be very interested in taking a look at this in coordination with our state partners.
John?
Yeah, I also agree that we should, I'd be in favor of lowering speed limits on all of our streets. No reason to be driving as fast as many people are doing. And I think Tim makes a good point too about making sure that we're enforcing it. So that pairs nicely with the question earlier about the speed cameras and those type of things. If we can implement that a lot better in our city, then we can also lower the speed limit and solve a lot of these traffic issues, hopefully.
All right. We're going to do one more audience question. I have a quick question, and then we'll get to closing statements. This is a quick one, perhaps. Would you support reopening the Metro G line Warner Center station? Starting with Barry.
Yes.
Okay. Don't even need the timer. John?
Yeah, we could probably speed through this one. I'm also a resounding yes there.
Tim?
100%. The whole point of Warner Center is density, being able to have a walkable lifestyle. So to have it closed in any part of the city, like Warner Center's the last one that makes any sense to have closed. So to open it 100%.
Maybe you can educate me, somebody, why is it closed? I'm not aware of it. Anyone know?
I mentioned that the Warner Center shuttle metro line is losing some huge number. I don't want to get the amount of money wrong, but it's a significant expense that it loses money. And so my hunch would be that there's the same issue with the station, but that'll change once the Rams build that Rams Village out. I think you'll have a lot more traffic there potentially.
Okay. Before we go to closing statements, I wanted to ask each one of you, what do you see as the biggest challenges in the city of LA right now, and what are you most hopeful for? And we'll start with you, John.
Biggest challenges I see in the city. I mean, in terms of transit and housing, I think it's the constant battles that we have with with NIMBYs and all those groups that are constantly just trying to push back and prevent us from building what we need to build and building more densely, especially near transit, and all the disinformation we saw around that bill when we were trying to get it passed. I think it's just these slow processes and this idea of like always maintaining local control is what we're just using to stop us from progressing and advancing as a city. But what has me hopeful, I think it's the new generation. What has me going through the campaign, talking to a lot of people. People are tired of it. People are waking up, and I think the new generation is expecting a new type of leadership. It's not going to continue to block everything and all the progress.
Tim?
Yep. So when you look at all the issues we have right now within our city, whether it's the homeless crisis, the issues with our transportation, the lack of housing, and all these things, I think a lot of it has to do with just a lack of leadership overall, and it goes back to LA not really doing any kind of long-term planning and not being willing to make investments. So I think the biggest issue that we have right now is the lack of investment into our young people, because what we're doing right now by not investing in young people, by literally getting rid of the youth development department, which is just doesn't make any sense to me, we're basically guaranteeing that 10, 15, 20 years from now, things are not going to be good. No matter what we do right now, if we don't invest in the youth that we have, it's not going to matter. Things are going to be bad for us as a city. We have got to focus on the youth that we have and creating leaders for tomorrow and folks that want to stay here and make life better for all of us.
And Barry.
I think our challenges are really vast, and I think you can't live in LA right now and not think that we have a housing crisis. We have a housing crisis, and so I want to really focus on making sure we're able to build more housing, and not just more housing, but more affordable housing for people, so that people can live near where they work and people can get around. I also think that we used to say before the housing crisis, my husband and I used to joke that traffic was the worst part of living in Los Angeles, and so we really need to build out our infrastructure better. And I think that I think a lot of we have an economic development challenge in that we haven't come back fully from the pandemic. And I know that people say that the city's not working for them. When we talk about permitting and our processes, it can take 9 months to a year to get a permit processed. And we really need to work on streamlining that and doing a better job for people living and just making the city work better, being responsive to our constituents in that sense, to really deliver for people and rebuild our faith in government.
One more question before we go to audience questions. What would you do differently compared to Bob Blumenfield, who's held the seat for 12 years? Over to you, Tim.
So being that I have a different background than Bob. So I'm an entrepreneur. I've never worked in government. And so I would take more of an entrepreneurial mindset. And so there's so many things that I just absolutely respect and love about Bob, and so many projects that he's working on, like the ice rink and the Cedar Theater, that I will continue. But I'm going to find a lot of ways to increase revenue for the city and a lot of ways to increase revenue for our district. And then I'm going to invest all of that back into the district. So my plan is to have a lot of exciting new ventures going on that I think we'll be able to get young people involved in, which I talked about before. But I think you'll see just more opportunities for CD3 to grow. I have a 100-day plan sketched out that would love to share with anybody who wants to take a look at it. But that would be my answer.
Barry?
Yes. So I would vote for the convention center. I would be vocally supportive of the convention center. I think this is if we build it, they will come, and we need to invest in our city. If we're not investing in our city, we can't expect other people to invest in our city and come here. So that was, for me, something I would do differently. And then just in general, with projects that are coming into my district, I would really engage early on with constituents and with people proposing new projects to get input and really just engage early on to be part of the process, so I don't come to it a little bit later.
John?
Thank you.
How I would be different is I would never be the reason that housing does not get built. There have been some projects, including ones under 81 a couple of years ago, where Bob had a hand in trying to block those projects. And as in a housing crisis, we can't be stopping anything that's building housing. And I think I'd also be more willing to take risk. And what I mean by that is, Bob is a career politician. And what we see from career politicians is they don't want to take risks. They do what's safe. They do what's going to get the least amount of pushback. And they don't want to take that risk until they make sure that every other council member is going to vote with them so that they don't lose face. And I think that's not the best way to govern at times, because sometimes it does taking a risk and putting your neck on the line, especially when we talk about street safety issues. Would we rather people keep getting killed by cars, or do we want to save parking so that nobody yells at us because we lost some parking spots along the street? And so I think having that ability to just say, hey, I'm not a politician. I'm okay with taking risks. This is what I'm running on, and I'm focused on these issues.
Okay. On to closing statements. Barry, whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much for engaging in this thoughtful discussion and for having me tonight. It's really been a pleasure to be a part of this, and I want to say thank you first and foremost. As I mentioned, I'm running for this seat because I love our city. I love the Valley in particular, and I think we have so much important work to do. For me, I think we have a real path to victory, and that includes 20 years for me of working with my sleeves rolled up in our communities, listening to constituents' concerns on the ground and delivering for our communities, with real relationships. It includes strong fundraising and having qualified for LA City matching funds, and it includes a coalition of endorsements that starts with my former boss Lindsay Horvath and many of our state partners and many others who we can work together to make our vision for LA a reality. So thank you, and I would be so honored and humbled to have your endorsement.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, thanks again for having all of us here tonight. I'm running as a unapologetically pro-housing, pro-transit, pro-safer streets candidate because that's what we need right now. I think for too long, the Valley, especially the West Valley, has been ignored when it comes to transit projects. And we're seeing people always, every day, packing on the 101, the 405, because we're not giving them other good options. We don't build bus lanes. We're barely building bike lanes. We're not prioritizing safety. And I think a big part of the district, or a big part of the issue I see in our district, is that people think of CD3 as, south of the boulevard, everybody up in the hills with the money that tend to stall our housing and our transit, and they're forgetting about the working families in Reseda and Canoga Park and NECA. And that's why I'm running, because I think that the West Valley deserves real options around transit, around housing, and somebody who's going to be a voice for all those people, and somebody that isn't connected to the political insiders and the types that have been blocking all this progress in our city for so long. And I'm running to change that.
Tim?
Hey, thank you. So, every time there's an election, people talk about, oh, this is the most important election. You got to vote, or it's our last chance before things go sideways. But LA really is in a bad spot. We're $1 billion in the red this last budget cycle. We have issues with property crime, with the homeless, obviously spending $900 million this year. And on the city council, there's not a single person that's ever run a business on the city council. Most of these folks have never had jobs in the private sector. So we need to have somebody in the room that has that type of experience of actually having built something before and having, signed the front of a paycheck. And so that's going to be, it's incredibly important that we have that person in the room at the end of the day. And, in regard to the bicycle safety issues and pedestrian safety issues, I lost my father in a bicycle accident. And so when I say when I say I want to prioritize this type of safety, I say it from the heart. And that's the only reason I'm running, is to make this community better. I don't want the title. I just want to do the work.
Well, thank you. I really want to thank all the candidates. It's not easy to sit here for an hour and a half and answer questions about a wide variety of topics. So really thank you all for your time. Thanks to the audience for participating. We'll get this up on our social media and YouTube channels tomorrow. And good luck with all of your campaigns. And have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.